Greetings to all our beautiful listeners. Welcome to the Empowerment Podcast. It is another beautiful day that the Lord has made for you and I to rejoice and be glad in it. I'm so excited to be back, to be giving you and serving you content. And as you have seen, that this is not an episode that is brought to you by a specific show. As you know, that Empowerment Podcast has different shows, but this is a special episode from the Empowerment Podcast. As we know that in the month of October, it is a mental awareness month, and this episode serves to be our portion to spread the awareness of mental awareness. As as a podcast, we believe that we should also be talking on such a big subject and such an important subject. So yes, today it is that episode. It will be a two parts or a two episode series that will give to you. The first one will be women's mental health, and the other one will be men's mental health. So today we have two powerhouse that will be bringing to you the content that we prepared on women's mental health, and then the following week or the following day we'll be bringing to you another series where we'll be talking with men, talking on men's mental health. So I'm so excited, as you can hear from my voice, that I'm already excited and ready to unleash everything that we have prepared and have for you, because this is a topic that has been ignored for some time, and I think it is time, as South Africans, as people of the world, as citizens, we get to talk about it and to spread the awareness. So with me, I have two wonderful ladies that will be sharing on this topic, women's mental health. The first guest, it is one of our very own in the family, Matshidiso Xaba, Mrs. Matshidiso Xaba rather. You also know her as Mrs. Sax on the Soulful Talks. Mrs. Matshidiso Xaba is a property investor, corporate leader, and a transformational coach, and also the presenter, as I've said, of the Soulful Talks. And also on the line, we have Nompumelelo Xaba, who is the author and speaker, blogger, podcaster, founder of Matcha Group of Companies, and projects manager at Shilos of Africa. So those are the two wonderful ladies that I'll be having today in this episode. So greetings, ladies.
Greetings to our listeners and to all our guests and to yourself as well, Lunga.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me on your programs, and greetings to the listeners as well.
Thank you once again for honoring us and coming through to share on this big topic. I believe it's big because we are talking on mental health. Maybe to get to know you before we go any further with the topic. Introduce yourself in a brief intro. Obviously, introduce yourself to the listeners. We'd like to know who is Nompumelelo and who is Matshidiso Xaba. We'll start with Nompumelelo.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, Lunga. All right, Nompumelelo Xaba. I don't know. Sometimes I really find it hard when somebody asks me to tell them more about who I am, about myself and things like that. Is it what I do, or, the things that I love and the things that I dislike? But anyways, in short, how I usually describe myself is that I'm a dream chaser. Apart from the things that I do, which are the things that I'm really passionate about, in the likes of writing. I'm an author of about 15 published books currently. I'm a speaker. I love engaging with people. I take off what Dr. Miles Monroe always say, the importance of dying empty. So I've always been that individual who's always chasing her dreams, trying to fulfill that potential and trying to see how far I can go. So I think I'm just that kind of a person.
Okay. Mrs. Xaba?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question to answer. But if I have to say who I am, I think the first important thing for me is that I'm a child of God. I love God, and I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about saving our generation. I concur with Nompumelelo. I'm also a follower of Miles Monroe to say you need to die empty. Look always for opportunities to give. Yes. And I am a mother of 3, and I'm married to Mr. X. And I'm still in corporate, but I've been there for almost 20 years. But I think life now is starting to pull me in different direction.
Mm.
And yeah, I love serving people. I love giving. I like to make an impact and change. I refuse to accept things the way they are. I always think that in every situation, there's a solution.
True.
Okay. No, this is going to be very fun. Going to have a great time. I can tell already. Okay, let's go to my follow-up question to the one of introduce yourself, because we are still allowing our listeners to know who do we have here, because sometimes it is said that experience is the best teacher. So as we are going to be talking on mental health, I think it's important we get to know you guys first before you share your wisdom, because sometimes when you talk about such topics, a person might say it's easy for you to say this because you've never been through stuff. And with what you've already shared, I can tell that you've went through a lot to attain the accolades that you just shared you have. So did you always have the interest to work with people? Let's start with Matshidiso this time.
I think, yes, as a child, I always like to serve. I always have this thing for especially elderly people. I am the child when we're still in high school, when you see an elderly person standing in the train, I will stand up and they will have a seat to sit down. And in terms of family, because of my background, I grew up with different family and relatives. And I always have this interest of getting involved, especially when it comes to reconciling dispute. That's the authentic self. And I think people who know me now, they will say, we didn't see that one coming. But life happens to you. And hence the topic about mental health, it changes who you are, who's the authentic true self that you were born to be because of experiences. But if I look back on my childhood, I was this child who will always intervene, make sure that there's no conflict in class, at home, within family cycle. I've always availed myself, getting into business, sometimes, but even in a business that had nothing to do with you. But I will get myself in there at church as well. I have served as youth in different programs because I always love to work with people. Yes.
Okay, Nompumelelo.
Okay. I don't know. Well, when Mrs. X, she's just taking us through back where she was growing up. I'm kind of thinking and stuck with a question or with a thought of something in my mind just popped saying, servant leader. When I got to know God, Jesus as my Lord and Savior, you get to know and try and mirror him as a servant leader. So that's what I've always tried to strive with everything that I do, whether being in writing books, because when I'm writing books, I always perceive myself as somebody who's trying to fix the mind and the heart and the of the people, of the society. So that's what I've always perceived myself. So whatever I do, I always try to serve in one way or another. And another thing, we live as an African now, when they say umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, so that means that in whatever that we do, it is very important that we are in the business of serving people. So in everything that I do, I always look at it as a calling. It's not easy to influence people. That alone, it is a gift from God, to have that ability to have people listening to you and doing what you recommend. That is not easy at all.
Okay. Wow. that was powerful. That was very powerful. So, as we have said, or we've been saying, that we will be talking on mental health, and we'll be focusing, or we'll be putting our focus on women, specifically the mental health when it comes to women. As I was doing my brief research before coming to this interview, I've came across the stat that says an estimated 400 million people worldwide suffer from mental illness, and I think that alone is a very scary, statistic, and it really says we should do something as people. It really
Yeah.
says we should
Yeah.
do something. We cannot just sit back and relax and act as if everything is normal. And because this
Yeah.
thing is not just something that affects an individual and it ends there, but once it affects one person, it always, it's similar to a chain. It ends up affecting all of us. So my first question to TD will be, what is the difference, or what is mental health? Explain it to someone who might be blank on the subject. What is mental health? When we are talking on mental health, what is that we are actually talking on? TD, you can go first.
I think for me, Lunga, in simple terms, mental health, I'll start by saying, the mind and the body are connected. And mental health is about understanding the connection between your mind, your body, and your emotion, how you react. It's about understanding how your mind functions. I think an example of one of the things that we study coaching, it's called neuro-linguistic programming. And neuro talks about the mind and how you think, because that is being affected by your belief system, by your background, by your experiences. And linguistic talks about how you use language, as you connect with people. And programming is more about how your experiences have influenced you, how you've programmed, like a computer program, because of your upbringing. You get conditioned about things. But the important thing is that the connection between the body and the mind and the emotion and how we view the world, because all those things are connected. They affect your belief system and it affects your view of the world.
Okay, that was very brief and precise. Nompumelelo?
All right. Thank you for that, Mrs. X. It was really informative. All right. I think for me, I just took what WHO, which is the World Health Organization, defined mental health as a state of well-being. It is how people think, feel, and behave, which is something that Mrs. X has touched on. So when we look at the term of mental health, we're really looking at the mental health disorders. I'm sure that we're going to speak more in details about them, which includes, eating disorder, where it includes depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of those things that we look at how, as a society, we can, try find ways on how we can prevent some of these mental health issues.
Okay. So basically, what you ladies are saying, mental health, it is a state of mind that one ends up in because of social background or social, ways of doing things. And okay, no, I think I get it. So let's move on to our second question. What is the difference then between mental health or mental wellness and depression? Because sometimes it is easy for people to mix the two. In fact, before, I prepared for this, I also thought that mental health automatically talks on, being depressed and being stressed. But I want to hear from you, especially you, Matshidiso, because you are a transformational coach. What is the difference between mental health or mental wellness and depression?
Okay, I think I like how Sis Nompumelelo put that summary of it's about how you feel, how you think, and how you behave. So most of the time when you speak about mental health and wellness, people automatically think that there's a disorder or there's an ailment. But depression is one of the challenges or the symptoms, not necessarily the symptoms, is one of the mental health issues. There can be many, like Nompumelelo said, that you can have an eating disorder, you can have anxiety attack. So it's a type. But when you look at mental health itself, It's the state of being. Lunga, you stated very nicely when you say the state of mind. It's a state of being as a person. Are you whole? Do you understand yourself?
Yeah.
Are you connected to the true self? Because sometimes we fake it so much that you become dishonest with yourself. Are you able to connect to your true self? Are you able to have those conversations with yourself? Are you resilient? So for me, mental health or mental wellness is a person definitely who doesn't have mental disorders, the depression and stuff like that, but who's whole, who's well, who's connected to self. When you were born in this world with things that were given to you that were purposeful for you. Are you following those things? An example, a person will say, for example, I'll say that I always had this inclination to help people, but I end up being an engineer. Why? Because I was told this is what you need to study, this is what's going to make money. But there's this disconnect inside of me. And as you grow up, you understand that, this is not me. This is not true Matshidiso. This is not what I want to do. What I want to do is to work with people. So that true connection to your true north, we call true north, connecting with yourself, knowing who you are, having those conversations with yourself, having a resilient mind, and being able to scan the environment around you. I would say for me, that is mental wellness.
Okay. Wow. I like how you put it, and I think what I'm catching in this conversation as we are getting into it, so we are not even in it that deep, but what I've been getting from it so far is that mental wellness, it's when you are at a good state where you are not feeling pressured by the society, where you are in a suitable mental state where you are able to, in fact, let me just say, where you are fully in control of your mental state, where you are not pressured by anything until you reach a point of anxiety or depression, as you've just put it, Mrs. X. But we are talking on women's mental health, so we are not just talking about mental health generally, but we are talking about it for women. And one of the reasons why I divided it, I separated the man's mental health and the woman's mental health, is because I believe we're facing different things. As men face different things when it comes to mental health, and women face different things when it comes to their mental health. There are some pressures women have that maybe men might not be having. That might be different, and there are things that might be minor to women that are major to men, and there are things that are major to women that are minor to men, vice versa, And one of the things that I would like you, Sis Nompumelelo, to share on is, how can women empower one another? How can women empower one another into women empower one another into preventing mental illness?
All right. That's very important, Lung. I mean, now we are getting on the juice of this. I run an organization that is called Shares of Africa, which is a women empowerment organization. And one of the things that we do as women is that it's an online platform where we come in and we celebrate and empower each other, because those are some of the things that us among women, Mrs. M would, kind of agree with me in some of what I'm going to talk about, that we really struggle to complement each other. When you see a woman dress well, sometimes it really becomes a strange feeling when you find or you get a compliment from another woman. So in that a woman in power, I know. So in that cycle that we have, which is an online cycle, we really come in, celebrate each other and compliment each other. And the aim of doing that really, it is to build confidence. It is to build the self-assurance among the women who are part of this cycle. Because this is what I believe in. That some of the things that would tackle some of these mental illnesses that we sometimes suffer from. Because that's all that we need. We need self-assurance. I need to know that, Mrs. X, I see you, you see me. because I might be struggling with something else that is just most probably at this moment I can't talk about it. But if I find another woman telling me that, you know what, you can do this, just keep going, it is such platforms that we create. So I think one of the ways that we can, empower women, in China, prevent this mental ill, it is to continue forming some of these women empowerment organizations, or just continue having the conversation where we will empower each other, where we would build each other our self-esteem, self-confidence, and just self-assurance, because that's all that we need. Is just we have to realize that we are more than capable to overcome challenges that we might be faced with. Because if Mrs. M could tell me that, you know what, Nompumelelo, you have this, you've got this, you are stronger, you can do it. Then this problem that I might have, I must start looking at it at a different perspective. So I think one of the ways is just really continue building these organizations which would, eventually assist us with tools of self-confidence and self-assurance. I think those is just one of the things that we can do.
Mrs. X, would you like to add?
Yeah, no, wow. I was just thinking that I have to join. Because the platforms like that, where we open up and have conversations and talk about the real deal of what's affecting us as women, it's very important. Yeah. And I was just reminded, as Nompumelelo was talking, during COVID, I actually also opened a platform where ladies can talk, due to the empowerment podcast. It's also through women on an online platform, creating conversations about the challenges, and you learn so much. True. And you learn to connect with people who can hold your hand and walk the journey with you, because really you don't need to invent everything. God already put divine helpers for you that are going to take you from stage to stage. He already orchestrated that. And through those platforms, you connect with people, you find the people that can help you through the journey.
True.
Oh, wow, very powerful. This is off script, and forgive me for this, ladies, but I have to looking at the conversation and how it's flowing. There's this thing, I think the Powerhouse, Sis Nompumelelo Gumede, shout out to Powerhouse, by the way. She normally talks on it on her conferences that she does, the conferences for women, and she's currently the CEO of Women in Business. There's this thing that I remember when I first got to know her, she used to talk on this thing that she would encourage women to stop doing this thing of pull her down syndrome, and a lot of women do it. I'd like to know what makes that. Maybe in your observations, both of you all are really, are women who empower other women. And I'm sure it's some of the things that you not only you take note of, but it's something I've even heard you mention in this series as we are talking.
Yeah.
What makes that? Yes. What makes a woman to reach that point where she doesn't want to see the other woman winning? She wouldn't mind seeing a man win, but she'll have a problem when it's another woman. What makes that?
Yeah.
Your thinking. Whoever feels to go first can go.
Okay, you know what's in my mind currently? It's just the idea of a person who is hurting will automatically want to hurt other people. I don't know if I'm taking the right approach.
Yes.
That's what I have in mind. When you are a beta person, you will always find something negative to talk about, something negative to comment about, to see, all of those type of things. So I think majority of us women, we really kind of like going through a lot, and that remains unresolved or undealt with, that eventually we carry that bleeding, heart or mindset, and then we eventually kind of, spread that negativity wherever we are or wherever we go, or whomever that we are engaging with. So in my eyes, I always see such a person when really the only thing that you can see in the next woman is just jealousy and beaten. I always think that, you are just hurting, and there are some certain things that within you that remain unresolved, and perhaps you just really have to sit down with yourself and just kind of like deal or get somebody who can assist. I always see it in that eyes. I don't know, Siti, how do you see this whole thing, beef among us women?
I think it's a tough one. So Lunga is putting us on the spot.
I don't know. I don't know why he does that.
The first thing that sort of came to mind for me, because I see this a lot in the workplace.
Yeah.
Not necessarily outside. Outside you will have these forums. Look at what Nompumelelo achieved when she brought so many women, 300 women from different backgrounds, levels. We're talking about issues that affect all of us. But in a workplace, I think there's this scarcity mentality. It doesn't start in the workplace, but because of scarcity mentality, we think that if another woman can progress, that means that there's not enough room for me. But life is not like that. Life is about abundance. What you just have to see that there's abundance is walk outside, see how many trees. 2 trees next to each other, they don't compete. They might overlap their shadows, but they don't compete for space. So if we can work with the scarcity mentality to say that just because that person has achieved, that this person lives in this double-story house, does not necessarily mean that I cannot. Because she drives this, she's in this position, doesn't mean that I cannot. For me, I like people like that because they encourage me to see the art of what's possible. If Mpumi can achieve that, if she can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, mine is to go to her and say, how do you do it? I'm interested in what you do. Like Nompumelelo, for example, I was interested on, hey, how does she balance working, having kids, and also being an empowerment podcast presenter and being the person that she was? She said, let me introduce you. So if we can do away with the scarcity mindset and learn that life is about abundance, whatever you need, God has created. We don't have to compete with each other. There's no scarcity mindset.
I mean, totally agree. Totally agree.
Wow. I'm loving this conversation. There's abundance for us all. There's no need for one to try and take from the other. Let us help each other climb each other. I like that, ladies. And it was. I did that on purpose. I wanted this to happen. Okay, so let's move on with we're talking on mental health, and one of the things is that how can we create a balance or adaptation to the 5 pillars of wellness as women? Spiritual, rooted in the Creator; mental and emotional; relational; physical and financial. And I think the financial one is very important that we talk on it because we know ladies and finances. We know ladies and finances. So Tidi, can you take that one for us?
Okay, thanks, Lunga. Why these pillars are all important is because sometimes you find that the root cause of mental health issues are either sometimes financially or physically. We are not fit in our body because of we continuously worry and become anxious about life. And also relational, when you are married or have a partner, things cannot always go the way you want. But before, I just wanted to elaborate that to create a balance, and that's where also mental health comes in, is that you need to balance these pillars, especially for us as women, because we need it in all of them. The first one for me is always being spiritual, being anchored in Christ. I was just thinking that when I was driving to work this morning, I was listening to Lunga, your show, about the final show about being anchored in Christ. As you were narrating the learnings from the guest that has come in the previous show, as you were doing the series.
Sure.
And that's important, having a place to go to when things are not going right in life, being vulnerable and surrendering all your challenges. Because think of it, we're going to have challenges in life. We're going to have issues about finances, whether we're not feeling well, or God forbid, your spouse going to leave you, things like that. So important for ladies to balance this thing. As much as we want to climb the corporate ladder, know that everything in life has a time and place. And how? When you talk about balance, I cannot be gunning for a promotion at the same time, at the relational, I want to have a child, At the same time, I want to build an asset. I want money. At the same time, I want to be fit at the gym. Giving everything your 100%, you're going to wear yourself out. You're going to be exhausted. So at different stages in life, you need to understand that, okay, maybe at this time, I can park my studies because I'm busy having a 6-month-old baby. So I'll give my relational more percentage because we only have 100%. There's only one you. There's not 5 of you. And I'm going to put more time in my family, in my relation. The career, I will pack it. Not that it's going away, but I will not go for that promotion because it's not part of my work-life balance. Then the kids grow up. 3 years later, you decide, okay, let me push the career. So for me, that balance and the adaptation, and also know that life is dynamic. The fact that you are dedicating so much in your family doesn't mean that will be the place. You prioritize and you allocate how much time am I giving at this. I'll come back, I'll push my career, I'll come back and improve my finances if I want to open a business. By the way, you spoke about finance, Lunga. I think for me, finance it's about a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing that we need to as we have money, we're coming back to the scarcity mentality. How we grow up because of poverty mentality. We spend. Yeah. But you need to transform your mind and you also the hand. You can have money in your hand, but if you have not changed how you relate with money, that money is going to leave your hand. It's not going to, it doesn't matter how much it comes. There's these people who win lotto. Unfortunately, there's this case studies. Then 18 months later, they say they've lost everything. Why? Because they have not dealt with their mind when it comes to money. The money entered their hand, but they haven't transformed their mind on how does a billionaire person relate with money.
Yeah, wow. That was very, very powerful. Thank you so much, Mrs. X, for that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sisi Tidi, for that powerful statement. I'll go now to Sis Nompumelelo. I'd like to know, how can women improve in communicating about mental health?
All right. I think this is the huge one as well. Abantu besifazane, like women, we are generally known as a gender that loves sharing their emotions. I mean, you will find us whether in the taxis or in the bus, in the car, in the restaurant. We are the ones who are always, talking about so much and sharing our experiences. So it really becomes really tricky when you find us women really struggling now to have this communication, regarding mental health issues. So I've really come up with 3 ways which I believe that could really assist us as women in improving our communications about mental health issues, which is the first one. It is creating time and space. We all know that it is not every conversation is suitable for any place at any time. So it's really important that you create that particular time in a particular place and a particular person as well, whom you can be able to converse or, confide to in regards to that mental health issue that probably you are currently faced with. And another important thing is that we have to remain non-judgmental, whether being you as a person who is currently experiencing some of the mental health issues, because that's the thing with us women, we intend to judge ourselves. I could be going through the most in life and I'll be like, no man, I don't want to burden the next person about the certain things, issues that I'm currently going through, So I think it is very important that we remain non-judgmental, whether you being a person who needs to find somebody who can assist you in whatever that you are going through, or you being a person whom another individual is confiding to. So I think it is very important that we remain non-judgmental, avoiding labeling certain issues or certain people, and become an active listener. I think that is very important when in order for us to remain non-judgmental, because a lot of times, some of us, when we are judging other people, it's because we are not really actively listening to them. So I think it is important that while you are remaining non-judgmental, just be an active listener. Listen in order to understand, which brings me to another point, which is show them that you understand. A lot of people who are struggling, well, this is based on my experience that I have seen, is that, when I'll be going through certain things, I'll be like, you know what, no one can understand what I'm going through. So I think it is really important that we show the next person that you understand what they are explaining to you. You give them that full attention, not really listening with an intention to respond, but in just listening with an intention to understand. I think those three major points would really assist us as women in improving our communication when we are talking about mental health issues. Creating time and space, remaining non-judgmental, and showing them that you understand.
Wow. Creating a space, not being judgmental, showing that you understand. I think that is clear. Mrs. X, would you like to add something on it?
No, I think what Sissy said is very profound. Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys think that the times we live in expose women to a bigger threat when it comes to mental illness?
Definitely. I don't know about Mrs. X, but me personally, I believe that they do. I mean, women with mental health conditions are particularly vulnerable to experiencing domestic violence. I mean, we all know the issues of GBV. Sibonile, when it was during COVID, remember?
Yes.
When, we saw how the cases of domestic violence, they were all at all-time high. I mean, I don't even know how they are dealing with those cases right now, but that issue is not on media anymore. So I think, yes, of course. So, as a society, it has exposed the times that we are living in, which is post-COVID, mind you. It has exposed a lot of women to a bigger threat when it comes to mental health issues, which I think it would continue to expose women and women to a greater danger, which could lead to suicidal or murder in most cases, as we are seeing, currently. This is what I feel. This is what I think. This is scarcity that as South Africa, as a world that we are maneuvering, also it's really are a dangerous times.
Okay, I hear you. Mrs. X, what is the postnatal depression and why we have so many cases of postnatal depression?
Basically, Lunga, postnatal depression is about mood disorders that are associated with childbirth or pregnancy, because now it can happen during pregnancy. And I think, as Nompumelelo was saying, the times that we're living in, they are putting women under a lot of stress, because we're trying to be successful in everything. We're trying to be physically fit. We're trying to be great parents. We're trying to be successful corporate leaders. We're trying to be best friends. There's so much that is being pulled out of you. And this, normally, what they call the PND, but the other one might be, I didn't see this coming. I'm not ready. I'm still pushing my career. So what it means differs from every lady. And the ones that are prone to that is the people that, they're saying, I'm not ready for this because I'm pursuing other goals of life about success. And I think what leads to this again mostly is that we've become so move away from Ubuntu, Muntu ngabantu. If I think previously, I remember my grandmother used to tell me, this thing where I'm not sure what is it in Zulu. When you have a child,
Okay.
your
Yes.
parents will come or your mother-in-law will come. They will help you nurture this child. They will teach you how to cope with this child. And the community as well, that cycle of women that will take you through the step of, because there's lots of transformation that is happening. First, you become disconnected from your social life. You can't go to the office anymore. You're taking off this baby. And our husbands, most of the time, they just continue as life for them. It's okay. Nothing has changed. I actually remember I went to one of the women's functions at church, and there was a lady who shared that he was upset with her husband after having a baby because their husband, she saw the husband as this man has a life that I used to live before I got married to him. Then what do I mean? The life used to be after work, sit in front of the TV, PlayStation, Now this lady has to cook, has to take care of the child, has to do this. And you cannot be all and be in everything. So I always say to the ladies most of the time when we engage, make your house work for you. You know where you need assistance. If you need a nanny, yes. And if Ubaba doesn't understand that, doesn't like food that is being cooked by someone outside, fine. There are things that are critical that you need to prioritize. But we get into this space where we ended up with PND, postnatal depression, because we're trying to be all.
Yeah.
Nompumelelo, would you like to add?
I mean, as Tidi, am I calling it right, Tidi? Right.
Yes.
Thank you. She's speaking. This thing, this advert, I think I forgot the name of the bank, or I would just leave it deliberately. It's how can I help you? You know, I think as women we are not asking each other enough that question, because sometimes I don't have to. You can see that I'm struggling. You know, sometimes instead of just driving off, can you just slow down your car and most probably roll down the window and be like, how can I help you? Or else just pick up the call, WhatsApp or something. I think we are not asking that question enough among us as women. Most probably as family as well, family members. You might be seeing that I'm struggling, but you'll be like, I've seen that I am late. You know, instead of how can I assist you? How can I help you? You know, especially in tackling what you were talking about, which is a postnatal depression, right? I think those could be really some of I don't know, questions or something that we can pose and ask ourselves as women in perhaps addressing some of these issues as well. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, if it's rough and raw.
No, it's cool. We are trying to create a space that is exactly like that, where we are free to share ideas and to, you know, exactly what empowerment is about, empowering one another, you know, and creating a space where we can equip and inspire one another in making one another better. But I hear you, ladies. I hear you, ladies. But there's something I'm thinking of as you are sharing, and I think it's a good way, or one of the best way we could enter into this follow-up question. This thing that says we are coming from a very difficult era as a country, as a world, and as people. You know, we're coming from a time where we faced apartheid, and there's a lot that happened there. Not only that, but we're coming from an era as the world where women were, you know, stigmatized to be the people of the kitchen, and that's where they only end. In fact, some of even our guys growing up, what they know is that a woman toswazane upheka, cleaning, ingane, that's all you were perceived to be good at for. And we entered an era where women rose up, you know, they raised, and they're like, we have more potential than just being, you know, wives, more potential than just being cooks. We have more potential than just being what we are perceived to be, you know. There was even a time where a woman, umefunda, and reach a certain grade in school, they would just, you know, go back home and continue with the duties, you know, because you've learned enough, you have enough to create a conversations, to, you know, And don't you think that that background, such a background, and entering this era of phenomenal women such as the both of you who are working, building houses, building careers, building businesses, building brands, and all of this, don't you think that some of the pressure and this illness, and I know that this is another off-record question, but you have to take it. Don't you think that that background, such a background, created this great mental illness that we are seeing, especially for women? Don't you think that that has an impact, or it contributed to what we are seeing today? That women are trying to match up to the standard of men, or match up to a standard that is perceived to be phenomenal and doing it in life?
Yo, that's a packed question, and I think some of these social roles or social gender roles that the society has subscribed for women and men. Angazi ukuthi who I don't know if our elders really sat down and thought about it, or it was like when as a woman, this is what is expected of you, without you as a woman sitting down and be like, oh, can I have a say in some of these things or not? But I think it is really high time, especially now, and it's actually a good era that we find ourselves kuyo njengamanje, where we can question such things that are happening and really kind of change, not entirely, but look at some of the things that as African society, whether a male gender or a female gender, because I can't be a working mother who runs a business, an empire for that instance, and come home and cook for a man who most probably cook for my husband, most probably who came back at work at 5, who's saying he's hungry and he hasn't eaten anything and he's waiting for me to come back and cook him something. So I think the modern times that we are living in, it really I'll say a good times for us as women, because now we are at a liberty of doing what we love, instead of having these rules that the society impose on us, making the final decision on what will become of us as women. So I think even though yes, there are still some elements, angiyazi ukuthi usisiri would touch in them, especially because she's married. I know the Makotis are expected a lot. So I know I've seen and I've heard, and I'm coming there as well, and I don't know how am I going to handle that, but what's your take on this matter?
Yeah, it's a tough one. So I see Lunga likes to throw curveballs. But this takes me back to what Nompumelelo was saying earlier. We need to heal as people, and apartheid is something that we need to heal from. And this is more for ladies, because yes, there's history, there's this background. Remember, how did we end up in these roles? Because men used to work and they used to be away. We used to be left, our grandparents in villages taking care of kids. That's no longer the status quo. Things are changing, and we need to change and be dynamic as well. But having said that, I think the key thing that we're battling with as ladies, and is what Lunga touched on, we're trying to be successful. We're trying to achieve everything that a man can achieve. I think for me, that's like a fallacy, because I don't have to achieve what a man can achieve. I understand my role, and the biblical guidance of what is a woman, what she can achieve in life, for me lies in Proverbs 31. That woman was taking care of the family. She was industrious. She was living her purpose and everything. But I cannot be a man, because that person is called for a different role.
Amen.
What he in the family is a different thing. I cannot be the one who's locking doors, who's making sure the cars have petrol. We need to separate the roles and understand that I cannot be everything. There are things that the security of the child of the house, Baba Ukona Ekaya.
No, continue. I'm just loving what you're saying.
the exodus. Yes, I'm capable of changing them here, but I want to be a man. I go back to being who I am as God created me.
Amen.
Mrs. X for president, guys. Come on. Come on. Come on. I like that. Yeah, we shouldn't compete. We shouldn't compete, but we are
Yes.
created to complement one another. I love that.
Amen.
Correct.
We are built in different ways so that we could complement one another and build this one thing, this one unison,
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Moving on. Okay, ladies, I promise I'll no longer draw off script questions. I'm sorry. Do you think? Okay, this one is for you, Sis Nompumelelo. Do you think our country is making it easy for victims of mental illness to speak up about their experience without being stigmatized?
All right. Firstly, Lunga, I think we need to get or see these statistics that came out. But South Africa is ranked among the worst countries regarding mental health, and this report came out for 2021. So already that just kind of gives you a picture of where we at as the country. And not being only the reason that we lack resources, but as you said, Uguti, when you touch indaba stigma, there's this stigma that is attached to mental illness. You know, people who are living with mental illness are perceived as people who are crazy, who are under some spiritual curse. In South Africa, you know, they are being looked at as people who are weak. Especially us in Africa, when you are saying that you're dealing with mental health, it's like, where are you when weak? Come on, just get your, I said this other word, get your things together, you know, just fix yourself. So you are being perceived as somebody who is weak, or the society just simply do not understand you. So I don't think, to answer your question, that South Africa is doing enough to educate people about mental health, you know, mental health disorders or some mental disorders that are out there that people are experiencing. But I mean, I don't want to touch into people's stuff, but unless if you guys noticed that, you know, after COVID, we had a lot of people, especially, you know, celebrities and other people whom we know, some of them based on, you know, the reports that we South African celebrities that they were, you know, struggling with some mental illnesses, and now they are coming out, they are being, you know, the sangomas and vad, you know, instead of, I don't know, being properly, properly diagnosed. There's this English word, Mrs. X, you know, being properly, what do you do when you evaluate somebody and just really truly understanding the illness that is, or the symptom, or the illness that is behind the symptoms? I don't know, but I'm looking for that English word.
Sure.
So I don't think that the country has made it easy for the victims of mental illness, and there's so much that as a country that we need to do. There's so much work that needs to be done. I think I would just have to stop there, because I mean, we are in such a desperate situation as a country right now.
No, most definitely, I agree. Mrs. X, do you think as a country, how far have we progressed in understanding mental health, especially after COVID, as Nompumelelo has put it? You know, do you think we've progressed?
I think we're starting to have the conversation. Like Sis Nompumelelo, there's platforms. I mean, ladies are creating platforms on social media where we talk about things, where we try to educate each other. But we're still very far behind other countries. For example, I heard on the news the other day that only 5% of the health budget goes to mental health.
Imagine.
And someone who does not have access to medical aid, to try to get in a government hospital to see like a psychologist, they say you have to be in a very bad state. Things that can be prevented. They say, no, we send you back. We will only see the psychologist after you are in this state, when things can be prevented. And the other thing I think we can do is that from a very young age, we can introduce a curriculum that talks to mental health, mental wellness, and how to relate from a very young age, because then we're building a society that is very resilient. not only after we have issues. I mean, us as African people,
yes,
we have this stigma to say that going to a psychologist or a therapist, you must have problems.
yeah.
Whereas it's not necessarily that you have problems. It's a proactive measure where you want somebody to teach you tools that you can equip with yourself to deal with this pressurized, stressful world. But we don't see it like that in our community. Every time you say, I'm seeing a therapist, what's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with me. I can go and see a child like I'm going to a doctor, a medical doctor, to do a physical checkup. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think we really need to be educated on this, and having this conversation truly serves the purpose of why we divided it. As you guys are sharing, I'm seeing that we are suffering, maybe differently, but at the same time in a similar way. And we need to face these things eventually, one way or the other.
And
face it. Sure.
I'm sorry, but and also just to jump into what Usitiri was saying, that in terms of seeing the progress, we are seeing the progress, as she was saying, that now we are starting to see that we are having the conversation, which is something that is important. And what I saw, Uguti, happened, the COVID-19 pandemic, it really exposed us as a society or as a country on how less we know about mental health illnesses and how to treat it. And the land of Sistiri, it eventually made me, during COVID-19, to actually write a book, which is called Prison Without Bars. We manage COVID-19 anxiety. I wrote this book because I saw how the social, isolation, where everyone was on lockdown and we're all confined in this space. You understand? To have a child playing in one space. Imagine you as an adult when you are so used to moving around. It was difficult. And it came with this burden of mental health problems, which could result, isn't just about some other people were suicidal, some others were, had the drugs, abanye were deliberately hating themselves. It was so many things that were happening during COVID. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just write this book and throw it out there. And I'm sure it's going to assist somebody who's currently faced with having to deal with mental illness at home. And how long did it take, Konje? How long were we in lockdown? Was it like 2 years or how long?
Yeah.
Imagine. And I'm sure City would also understand the lessons, all post-trauma, depression, and all of the, some that's my 2 cents, is that it's not getting the attention that it needs. And was really like 5% budgets. What is that? That's an insult to us as a country and the people who are suffering at the ground, So I think it's not enough. The country is not doing enough. Yes, we are seeing, there's hope, but there's more that needs to be done. That's what is. I love talking, so please do forgive me.
Very true. We need to do more, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Even in the workplace, I think we're starting to see a change happening. It's not only about safety, health, and environment. It's about mental wellness as well. We need those programs in the workplace because we deal with people.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ladies. Wow. Interesting. Okay. Let us move on for the sake of time. How can lack of boundaries in social media, this instant communicating consistently, and the adrenaline that it creates, we all know the socials, and how can we deal with that? Let's start with whoever feels ready.
Okay, I think I'll just throw in just a couple of things. We all know that there's this strong link between an unhealthy social media user and anxiety or depression or isolation or something. And we've seen that even during what we went through as a society during whatever pandemic, there was a huge number of people getting into social media, keeping themselves busy, just passing time. And that created a whole lot of unbalance in our mental health, because there were so many things that got in. People were, there were so many things that we're going through during that time. And I think one of the ways that we can deal with this unhealthy relationship between our social our mental health and social media use is that, number one, I think it's very important that we reduce time online. There are apps that are out there that which will assist us in tracking the time that we spend online. I think based on that, we can try to narrow the time that we use online. And another important thing is that we need to change our focus. And I believe that majority of people who spend time online are people who don't really have so many things that are focusing on. So I think in order to minimize time online, just to try to divert some of the time on certain other activities. It could be, doing an online course. It could be, having a new hobbies, or I don't know. But just try to focus on something else other than
even reading a book.
I mean, Lunga, you read my mind. Just read the book. Okay. And another thing is that the last thing is just spend time with offline friends. Yes. Other people will be like, I'm just busy with these friends. These are my friends that I'm always, talking to. But hey, you know what? You can just change that way of communicating with them. Switch off your phone and you guys could meet up over lunch or something. So I think those are really 3 important points for me. I think that could really cut out this unhealthy boundary between social media and our mental health.
Mrs. X?
Yeah, I think Nompumelelo is spot on. The only thing that I will add there is that I always say, when you go to social media, what value does this interaction have for me? So if there's no value, I mean, there are lots of valuable things. She mentioned that you can do an online course. We listen to sermons, we do home sales on virtual. Do not look on everything that does not add value. So if I just go and look at people's photos and stuff, what value is it adding to me? And if there's no value, rather use that time to grow your mind, read a book and do things like that. And also try to have a discipline of time. I mean, people are sending so much instant message. There's this instant gratification. Even my boss, when he sends me an WhatsApp, the expectation is that I'm going to see the message, I'm going to answer. That discipline of putting the phone away, like emails when they were first launched, that I only check my WhatsApp after a meeting. And we're battling with that. Even me, because of this instant gratification. I'm trying to build this discipline that I'm changing my interaction with my phone. I'm going to put it away. It's not going to be in front of me. When I get home, I leave it in the bedroom. It's not in my pocket. They call it uhlale kukwini for a reason. But this uhlale kukwini, it's complex, guys. We need to we need to dissociate.
Wow. As we are talking on, the social and the impact it brings or it has on us. And I was just thinking that sometimes we go to an extent that we even bring them even in the dinner table. Even when we be having conversations with people, we are sitting with people, rather than we having a conversation with them, getting to know them. Maybe the person next to you is a person who will put you a step ahead of what you are doing in your life. And all you're doing is you're on Facebook or Instagram. So that is something we really should be looking. Oh, also one thing that is very important that I forgot to say, listen to Empowerment Podcast. If you have
how did we
come on, listen to Empowerment Podcast. Spend your time. We forget that time is a currency that we trade in reusing. And everything that we trade in our time, we are going to get, we forget that. We forget that we are buying with our time. Time is not just a thing that is there. It's a currency. But let's move on before we start to preach our opinion here.
It's a currency of life, actually. I heard somebody say that. The currency of life.
Exactly.
Time. That was so profound.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's move on to I think these are the 2 final questions I'll be asking you, ladies. So one that I'd like you to answer says, how can mental health issues affect you? Your relationship with partner. It could be career progression of one partner or children. Or it could be conscious, parenting. Tidi, you can take this one.
I think I will answer the quick one about the career progression.
Sure.
You know, in a relationship, there's always two people, right? Then
True.
when the other ones having what we call upward mobility, that creates a third thing in the relationship. And you find that there's a struggle to balance because something has shifted. We need to find ourselves. And this happens mostly with us as ladies. As our husbands are progressing, we're starting to say, yeah, but he does not give me enough time anymore. We used to do this when we were dating. But understand that relationships are dynamic. People evolved. And you should also grow in a relationship because the person that you married is not going to be the same. He's going to think of opening a podcast because he wants to serve. He's going to think of this. So you cannot be sitting there and playing a pity party. I've learned that the hard way. I won't go there. You have to evolve. The third party in the relationship can be a person or can be a thing. In this case, it was a thing. Then the thing about a person can be when you guys are having your child for the first time. You find that you are giving each other so much attention, and women, we battle with this. Once the child is in the picture, we forget about the father or the husband, we focus on the child. And that also can create a strain in the relationship that can expose the husband to stress, mental disorder, because he feels like I'm no longer important. So it's always important to create that balance and understand when there's a third person or a third thing changing the dynamics of the relationship, we need to react appropriately. Last thing I just wanted to add about parenting. There's a book that calls, it's not always depression. It talks about childhood trauma. That most of the time, we parent unconsciously. We parent based on how we were raised, how we were conditioned, how we were programmed. And this person in front of us, we're not actually looking at them and saying what they need. We're actually giving them the medicine. And this is one of the biggest things for us as middle-class families now. We're giving our kids the medicine that they don't need because we're the one who got sick. We're the one who needs healing. We spoke about that we're hating because of our past, of how we grew up in apartheid. So I'm giving my child everything. I'm compensating for all the things that I didn't have. But who's sick here? Is it my child or is it me? Rather, let me deal with myself, heal my trauma, so that I can show up as the best parent for this child in this time and age, not because of my past.
Very powerful.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Wow, that was very powerful, Mrs. X. Thank you so much for that. What would be your advice, Nompumelelo? What would be your advice on the practical steps women can do daily to improve mental wellness or reduce stress and worry?
All right. I mean, this is something that I love talking about. In my podcast, I advocate a lot about mental health. And this week we spoke about some of the daily activities that we can do to prevent some of the mental health problems. And we looked at number one, things like getting close to nature. I mean, I'm just one person who loves, hiking, that walk in the wood. I love, that being surrounded by water, that deep breath, whether, also just watching the sunset, some of these things, I think they're really important in order for us to reduce stress and worry. And I promise you, if you try these things, you will see a huge difference in yourself. And another thing is that what I've also noticed is that we usually use drugs as women and alcohol to cope with difficult situations. So I think another thing for us is that we need to try to cut off, drugs and alcohol to cope with difficult feelings, because this is what we do when we are going through, difficult times. We would drink or we would take drugs trying to numb the feeling, and right after it has worn out, the feeling, it will eventually come back. So I think we are like wasting our time instead of just getting inappropriate help. So I think drugs and alcohol they don't help a lot in difficult situations. So I think that is something that we can also try to reduce. And another thing is that we need to get more from our sleep. I mean, I'm one person when I'm stressing or I'm just going through a lot in my life, I will have insomnia, I would really struggle a lot. So I think I have really trying to come up with ways on, having a comfortable sleep during that time. So as you know, as adults, it is very important that we get 7 up to 9 hours of sleep. I don't know, Ted, how long do you sleep? Is it 5 hours or? Kodwa bathi ama-adults.
No comment.
Okay. Yazi Nsidi, umoya uthi wami uyangilida ukuthi angithi you need to get more sleep.
I'm feeling it.
So we need to get more sleep as adults. And, if you feel there's certain things that will distract you from getting that peaceful and deep sleep, because that's the thing that next time, Lunga, probably will have to dive deep into trying to distinguish or having a clear understanding of sleeping and having a deeper sleep. Because some of us, we have what's in ulalo benyoni. Once
Yes.
you are all up, that's not just.
Wow, that was a lot that we just had a conversation on. Women's mental health is something that is very important, and it's something that we really need to look into and work on as a people, as a country, as a community, and as a society. I think we need to call in churches, organizations. We need to call in your adults, the young ones, schools. We need to call in everyone, because this is not something that affects a select group, but it's something that can affect anyone. If the stats tell us that about 400 million people worldwide are suffering from mental illness, depression, and anxiety, that tells us that it is something that a person next to you could be suffering from. And this conversation has exposed a lot of things that contribute and attribute into it becoming even worse. So if we even hear of such things as that 5% has been the allocated budget for such a huge thing that affects so much and a huge part of our lives, rather, how can we then be complacent about it? We need to rise up and act and start taking that action. So ladies, thank you so much for availing your time, for being vulnerable and sharing your honest opinion and views on this subject. And I know that you the time you spend is more than, I'm sure that even the people who are going to listen to this episode, they are definitely going to be equipped, they're going to be empowered, they're going to be inspired, But before we go any further, I'd like to hear your closing remarks. Maybe let's start with you, Sistine.
Yes, I think my closing remark is something that Nompumelelo said that's very important, that as human beings, we come from nature. So we are nature. We're created from nature, and when we die, we will go back to nature. So it's important to connect. We spend so much time, sometimes in our houses, in our cars, just taking time and walk, just taking time to connect with yourself, to reground yourself. It's very important. I like to call these things me time, where I'm doing nothing. I'm saying this is my nothing day. I know my husband doesn't understand, but
Nice.
I have nothing days where I literally don't do nothing except something that refreshes me. Reading a book, taking a walk in the garden, go hiking, only me. It's very important that we find ourselves, make time for ourselves, and always remember that you are enough. I think that's very important for ladies. You are enough. Don't try to beat everything every time and put yourself out there to the extent that you pour so much that there's nothing inside to give. When you get to a point where you say, this is enough, I'm tired, listen to your body and say, I've done my best. People will always want things from you, but when it comes to time to spend with yourself, have your nothing days, ladies. Just have your nothing days. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I should jump in as well, Lunga.
Yes.
All right. I think my closing remarks would just simply be that as a society, we need to learn to be kind to one another. Because we are all going through something, So the kindness that you project to the next person can go a long way. So I think it is very important that we learn that as a people moving forward. And another important thing to whoever is going through a hard time right now is just that you need to understand or know that just because you are struggling, it doesn't mean that you are failing as a person in life. You are not alone. God is with us at all times. And remember that permanent. Everything is temporary. The pain that you are feeling right now, it is temporary. It is all going to pass. It's just you gathering that lesson and just keep on living. Thank you.
Oh, that's so powerful, eh? Life is about seasons, and they all go up and down. It's like energy, it flows. But at the end of the day, it's a temporary season. We are not here to pack.
Oh, of course. And the important thing of appreciating every season, because the thing is, we are looking forward for summertime, summer season. But even the winter season, it serves its own purpose. Every season it plays its own role. It's important that we learn to love and appreciate every season that we are passing through.
Wow. Thank you so much, ladies. I can tell that this episode cannot end because of how great the conversation is. And this just is a sign that we need to have this conversation more often. October shouldn't be the reason why we are having such conversations. Woman empowerment, man empowerment is something that we need on a daily. And we need to work on these serious issues. We shouldn't shy away from such topics as mental health. We shouldn't shy away from such topics as depression, anxiety. And and I'm so happy and excited that during this week, we'll also be having men's mental health, where we'll be having a similar setup, but with men, where we'll be talking on issues, similar issues, but, the ones that are currently facing men. Currently in a country, South Africa, we are facing GBV. It is something that is, very huge in the country. We tackled it on this topic, and we are also facing a lot of different things, that are happening in the country. Where people are depressed, people are facing anxiety. A lot is happening, and we need to tackle these issues. So thank you so much, ladies, for offering us your time and your services to share with our people. And I'd just like to say thank you to our listeners for tuning in into this episode. Expect the men's mental health, where we'll be talking with men on men's issues. And definitely hit us up. Let us know what you think on this episode. Let us know on all our socials. We're available on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, which is Empowerment Podcast. We're also available on Instagram at empowerment_podcast, Twitter at Empowerment Podcast. We have a TikTok account, Empowerment Podcast. YouTube, we are available, Empowerment Podcast. Wherever you want to get in touch with us, we go by the same name, baby, Empowerment Podcast. Thank you so much, ladies. I truly appreciate you and honor you. And thank you so much for offering such a beautiful episode. It's been great. Maybe you'd like to share where people can get a hold of you. Also, Nompumelelo, you can share your podcast, where people can find your podcast. Then we are wrapping it.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I highly appreciated to be here. I mean, the information which was shared here was really empowering. For those who would like to connect with me, I am on Facebook as Nompumelelo Africa Xaba, Instagram Bumi_Africa. LinkedIn, it's Nompumelelo Xaba. For those who might be interested in to discuss more of this mental health issues, they can find me on Unplug with Africa. I mean, I have a whole lot of other episodes, so you can just plug in some of the conversation that I had some time ago. Thanks.
Matshidiso, if someone wants to get your services as a transformational coach, how can they get a hold of you and how does it work?
Okay, they can contact me on my cell phone number. It's 083 307 6845. 083 307 6845. And they can always catch me on Empowerment Podcast during our show of Soulful Talk. Thank you. I don't do social media.
Representing like that. Thank you so much once again, ladies. Thank you once again. It's been truly an honor to have you on this special episode. I hope that other ladies have learned something, they've gained something valuable from the series. From us as the Empowerment Podcast, we'd like to say, ungayibulali sisekhona. Just share your testimony, share your story. We'd love to hear it. And yeah, we are your ear, we are your mouth. We are here to empower you, inspire, and to equip you. Thank you so much. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mpume. Thank you, Lunga.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.